guys? So welcome to part 3 of this mechanical portion of hood stacking this car. The first part of this was the removal of everything. So we removed the EGR cooler, the ASV, which is the anti-shutter valve, and all of the full exhaust. Now we are going to be installing the EGR delete, which is the race pipe, which is going to be here, and then the hood stack, which is from Dark Side. It is the Dark Side stack. I did wrap it in a exhaust wrap, just so that way it doesn't burn any wires up or anything under the hood. But if you have not seen part 1 and or the tuning portion of this little series, go ahead and give those a watch. The link will be in the description. So we'll go ahead and jump into it. This video should not be near as long or in depth really as the removal part, because there was just so much to remove from this Volkswagen. But like I said in the previous video, we are right at 65,000 views, 3,000 watch hours, and a little over 350 subs. So I appreciate all the support, and let's jump into it. Okay, so this is going to be your EGR and ASV delete. This pipe here is basically, and I'll have to confirm the orientation of it here in a second, but it's basically going to go right here, and I think it actually goes like this. Yeah, that looks about right. So it's going to go in there like that, and basically that took out all of this right here, took out all the EGR valve, your anti-shutter valve and whatnot, and then your boot will connect to it, and it will still connect into the same spot down here. And then, like I said in the previous video, I opted not to take this tube out. It's just too much of a pain right now, and I am going to put my block off plate directly on here. So we're gonna get a little time lapse of that going, so that way we can get all this installed and start focusing on the hood stack. Alright, so because I am putting the block off plate here, I did have to buy some additional nuts and bolts, just 5/16 by 1 inch long, with a flat washer and a lock washer, and we're just going to install them here. We will use the provided gasket, which is right here, and I got multiple mainly because this block off plates is for the EGR cooler. If you have a regular exhaust, but since this one's being hood stacked, we will only be using one of these, so we'll use this. This plate will go right here, and we will shove it on there. So we'll get that bolted down and then start on the race pipe. Okay, so I got the block off plate on, as you can see there. First and foremost, what I'm going to do is I'm going to install the lower boot right here, mainly because that hose clamp down there gave me some issues just trying to get to it earlier, and then we will fit this on, and should be good up here. So if there is any advice that I would have with this little boot here, it is going to be patient. The hose clamp at the bottom is a little bit of a pain, and you will just have to be patient with it. Use a 1/4 inch ratchet with a small extension on it, and you'll be able to get it after a little bit of working with it, but nothing too difficult here. Okay, so after a little bit of test fitting, looks like we're gonna have to cut this down a little more, which is no big deal. We'll get the die grinder out and cut it down a little bit more, but we'll cut that down and go ahead with installing the race pipe. Okay, so we went ahead and cut that bracket back just a little bit more. We will probably have to do some tweaking with pulling that up a little bit to get everything to fit, but now I'm a little more comfortable. The bracket is a little smoother back there, and it's farther back, so we don't have a chance of running into it with that, but we'll go ahead and do that, and we'll mock everything up. Okay, so with this, really and truly, patience is going to be key. You are going to have to walk the race pipe up slowly, and really that is because the little 45-degree boot that is put on under it, really and truly, it's not long enough, and you can't really blame that on the boot. It's probably the race pipe not being long enough, to be completely honest. But just walk it up slowly after you tighten the hose clamp, and just make sure that your O-ring does not fall out. as I say here later in the video, the O-ring shape is not ideal for the actual slot that it goes in, but all right, so now all of that is wrapped up. Just as a reminder, I did put the block off plate here instead of taking that whole line out. I really don't think it'll cause an issue. I'm not too impressed with the fitment of this race pipe. I still will drop the link in the description, but it seemed a little forced, and really I think the only issue is that it's not long enough, and the O-ring is not the same as what the factory one is. So the factory one, oops, the factory O-ring has a flat spot in it to match that. Well, the race pipe also has a flat spot in it, but it is a complete circular O-ring, so you got to kind of set it in there and then hope like hell it doesn't come out. But now we are going to start measuring and do some fitment for the hood stack, so we can go ahead and get this thing started. All right, so I do got the hood stack, and I am wearing gloves because the exhaust wrap has a bunch of fibers of fiberglass. So basically we're going to mock it up, and then we'll put the O2 sensor in, and we will do a first start before we start cutting the hood and such, just so that way we can address issues before we start cutting. But we'll start mocking that up now and go from there. All right, so the stack is mounted, but the car threw a check engine light for the throttle position or whatever it was, but not sure what's going on there. I am going to have to contact the tuner. The car is running though, it does run, but the glow plug light is also blinking, so I've got the battery disconnected right now. See if it'll clear those codes. It may have done something funky whenever I unplugged everything, but here what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to notch this out with a die grinder and then remake that mark where it's just hood. I think that's just going to be easier, and then we will go ahead and hole saw it. Okay, so with all that mocking up, basically what I did was I tried to find where it was touching currently. Obviously that won't be exactly where it is going to end up. So that is why I got a 4.5 inch hole saw. So we'll end up popping a hole about here in the middle. So we'll have 3/4 of an inch on each side. And hopefully this will work. So the hole saw scenario is not necessarily ideal because I got to put it on a socket and then on the drill, but I've eyeballed it a few times, took some measurements and whatnot, and I think we're going to go ahead and pop the pilot hole for the hole. Keep in mind that's not the exact center right there. It was just my first iteration, so. There's the pilot hole. So now we're gonna grab the hole saw and we're gonna go through with it. Okay, so I have looked at my marks and kind of double checked all the measurements, and we're gonna go ahead and send the hole through, see how it goes. Drill battery would die in the middle of cutting it, but we're looking pretty good for where my marks are. So we'll grab another battery. And that's my fault because I didn't charge them. We'll go ahead and throw it back in the hole. It's almost there, that's why the drill keeps catching. So a little more to go. There it is, there's the hole. So here is the moment of truth to see if this bad boy is going to line up. Well, I could have went back a little further. We'll see if it touches, but it is a little far forward. We'll see what happens. So what I ended up doing is actually moving the stack forward a little bit. I had enough room on the flange, and I mean, I think we're pretty good. Stack looks good, and we'll go ahead and start it and see if the code still comes back, and we're gonna try to drive it, see exactly what it does and if the code persists. But I'll give you all a start up here in a second. All right, so here we go on a startup. We'll see if the check engine light cleared. Kind of doubting it might be a problem in the tune, but let's see what it's got. My opinion, it's really not as loud as I thought it was going to be, but good thing is the check engine light went away, but the glow plug light is still blinking. So we're gonna take it for a drive and see if that can possibly go away. I've heard that it's possibly a EGT issue because Malone thinks that you've actually got an EGT sensor. You do have an EGT sensor in the downpipe. So if you hood stack, you got to submit a ticket, whatnot. I will do that. I'll contact them. But basically got a glow plug light blinking right now. But the good part is that the check engine light for the valve here is completely gone. So that's great. So I am taking the car for a drive right now, and honestly, it's not that loud in the cab. I don't really notice much difference than, you know, stock, which obviously would be louder than stock, right? But it's really not that loud like I expected. It's driving well considering the check engine light is on and the glow plug light is flashing, so we'll have to get that, you know, settled out and whatnot. But overall, I am impressed, and sorry for, you know, the light, if you can barely see me, but it's dark outside now. It took about a day, and man, honestly, I'm really happy with it. And it's, even if you've got the window down, it's I mean, this is in-town driving, and it's really not loud doing 35 mile an hour. So overall, I am very impressed, and once we get the check engine light and the glow plug light figured out, we'll be good to go. Okay, so it's been a few days since I actually filmed the content and have not edited yet, so I figured I would jump in and give a small update at the very end of this video. So the check engine light is fixed, and it also fixed the glow plug light. And we have not been able to tune the DSG yet because Malone sent me the wrong tuning device. So really not a big deal. We'll go ahead and get those two videos up as soon as we can. But we're going to go ahead and give you all a cold start since we got a little bit of some colder weather here in Texas.